Hello, and welcome to everyone. Thanks for taking the time to attend. We hope you get some value from this session. Quick housekeeping point. This session will be recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel. If you have any questions during the presentation, if you'd post these either in the questions tab, or if you could add them to the chat, then please direct them to Gemma Stewart. She'll be collating questions, and we'll look to get through as many of those as we can in the Q&A section towards the end of the session. Now, this session is part of a series of webinars that we're running, and you'll be receiving a survey in relation to this session. It'd be great if you could respond so that we can capture some feedback and helps us to continually improve these sessions and direct the content of the series going forward. Now, my name's Dan Mennick. I'm the go-to-market lead for the data platforms and engineering community at Agile. I'll give you a brief overview of the agenda. So I'll quickly give an overview of Agile as an organization. We'll have a view of some of the insights we see through our work with Gartner and with our clients. Richard Carberry will be looking at the background and concepts of the data lakehouse, and then walking us through a customer story that focuses on the architectural design, where we've worked with one of our clients on a lakehouse implementation on Azure using the wider Azure native technology as well as Synapse. Tom Richards then is going to focus on our cloud migration approach and methodology. Finally, Dan McCain is going to give us an overview of some Informatica integration products and perform a short demo. We'll have a look at a few tips that we've from the lessons that we've learned in our engagements, and then we'll have the question and answer period before we close. So first, I'd like to introduce you to Agile, give you a sense of who we are as an organization. Our mission is to reinvent digital consulting for our clients through business agility, intelligent and disruptive technology, improving customer value. But what does that mean to us? We focus on enablement of our clients' people and process, embedding Agile methodologies and targeted application of data in order to increase the speed and accuracy of their decision-making capability. And by extension, making their business more operationally effective and more profitable. Our industry partnerships with top-right leaders and visionaries, as well as our own insight and experience, allows us to more effectively identify opportunities presented by emerging technology to target appropriate use cases and applications for those technologies, effectively finding the right job for the right tool in this case. Finally, we develop and maintain a focus on a clear business case with measurable and demonstrable benefits, making sure we keep our feet on the ground. Now, our service offering and delivery structure is based on specialization through the data lifecycle. This breaks down into 3 focus areas: data strategy, governance, and advisory community. Focuses on strategy development and planning engagements, developing data governance and data security frameworks, architecture and infrastructure design, and building the foundation for the success of a data function within an organization. Data platform and engineering community builds on that foundation, starts to introduce the operational components within that lifecycle, designing and creating data repositories, connecting to business systems and building integration pipelines, and then configuring these components into data platforms. Look to expand the type of and format of data that's available to capture, and then consolidating and bringing structure to that enterprise data. Finally, our analytics and insight community starts to leverage the operational framework and focuses on pushing that value out to the business through visualization and business intelligence initiatives, analytics and advanced analytics techniques, often with a customer focus, and the distribution of that data down through the business and out to customers and third parties where appropriate. We also have multiple ways of working with our clients. That includes flexible service and delivery models to suit requirements, from rapid project engagements to longer-term program delivery and down to fully managed service deployments. And how does this translate into engagements with our customers? Well, as you can see, we cover the full spectrum of the data lifecycle with a broad range of clients across multiple industry sectors. This includes working in the public sector, financial services, manufacturing, retail, travel and tourism, among others. We've provided solutions and delivered engagements to organizations of varying size, from medium to larger enterprise companies, and increasingly we're speaking to smaller organizations as we help them move their portfolio to the cloud. We've also worked with many of our clients progressing from the point of engagement through subsequent stages of the life cycle. What I'd like to do now is sort of give you a high-level view of how we use our industry relationships to work with our customers. Leveraging the insight that we get from our partnerships with Gartner gives us early access to industry trends. We use this to help our customers develop their data management roadmap, maintain a balance of avoiding risk through the use of tried and tested technology, to where early adoption of emerging technology can capitalize on the opportunities and drive advantage for the organization. Then, using our relationships with the technology vendors like Microsoft and Azure and Informatica, we can slot applications into the roadmap to cover relevant and appropriate technology that suits requirements and drives return on investment in data management solutions. And we're able to leverage those relationships to help optimize our customers' costs with those vendors. So using that methodology, let's have a look at why we recommend that investment in cloud data lakehouse solutions using Azure and Synapse technology is relevant at this moment. Looking at the top 10 data and analytics technology trends, we can highlight examples that cloud data lakehouse solutions would support. Cloud's a given. Economy, rapid deployment, and native capability gains enable customers to get into production and by extension realize value more quickly and with less risk. More detailed and accurate decision modeling leading to identification of multiple alternative decision paths increases the scope of operational and tactical decisions that can be automated. We can see this in, for example, in the introduction of customer data platforms. Gartner estimate that approximately 80% of data is currently unavailable to analytics processing. It sits within unstructured formats such as text or video and audio, and the intelligence and sentiment that's embedded within the contents of those assets. This is referred to as X-analytics. Pulling data into the lakehouse will provide a comprehensive, structured repository that allows organizations to expose a higher percentage of their data assets to analytical processing. This is specifically highlighted as a means to meet the challenges associated with the gap between pre- and post-pandemic data analysis. In order to funnel these objects and to extract the embedded data from within the unstructured formats, organizations need to augment their pipelines and governance processes using machine learning and AI applications. The data lakehouse provides a repository to handle data in any format at scale, making it a viable target for those types of augmented processes. Finally, with the breadth and scope of data and insight being produced, organizations can look to commoditize their data and take it directly to market, creating revenue possibilities and adding to the return on investment of these initiatives. Our experience with our customers that have invested in these types of solutions have included, for example, more detailed and consolidated view of customer. It leads to more frequent touch points with positive outcomes with individual customers. The democratization and dissemination of data down through all levels of the organization and out to customers and suppliers where appropriate to help drive engagement and better decision results. A more reliable return on investment, including return on data platform projects and machine learning and AI initiatives that actually make it into production and provide value for the organization. Again, this is all based on the capability and economy afforded by cloud infrastructure and the rapid and appropriate application of technology solutions to use cases. So, down to business. I'll hand you over to Richard Carberry, who's going to look in more detail at the data lakehouse technology and some of the Azure and Synapse capability through the lens of one of our customer stories. Richard, over to you.
Thanks, Dan. So my name is Richard Carberry, and I'm a principal consultant within Agile. I'm just managing the control. There we go. Tad bit laggy. So I'm going to give you a quick overview and history of the Cloud Data Lakehouse, and I'm going to then give you some ideas, some of the business benefits that you can realize when adopting this technology. And then, as Dan mentioned, I'm going to walk you through a recent engagement we had with a client to help them really accelerate their analytics, which is one of their major use cases. So, what is a cloud data lakehouse? Well, the history of it the data lake arrived probably in 2011, coincided with the introduction of the big data infrastructure, Hadoop infrastructure, and it was really to kind of cater for the huge volumes of all these new data sources. And Dan tapped into some of them already in terms of devices. You had smart meters in the utility market, so there was lots of there was a need for data lakes, a need for the collection of mass amounts of data. And then we had, at that point, as we already had the data warehouse, and it had been long established for a very long time, the debates around which one to use really started to take off. You know, the lake versus the warehouse debates flared up all across organizations, predominantly in IT and analytical functions. People formed the camps and lines were drawn. You know, some people were adamant that it was only going to be a lake that you ever needed. Others said that you needed that structure and that quality that a warehouse provided, and the accessibility of model data for customers to really build some really good reports. So there was a lot of bouncing back and forward through there. But then once the debates had settled and the general consensus was formed that you kind of needed both. You absolutely needed a data lake, and you definitely needed your warehouse. You needed that structured capability from your warehouse, and you needed that data store for all these new data sources that hadn't really been considered up until the introduction of the big data infrastructure. And then 2015, roughly, we started to see cloud really take off as a technology. It's obviously been about for a wee bit longer than that, but that's when it started to take hold as infrastructure, as a service. It began to mature, and the technologies of the data lake and the data warehouse, from all the debates that had happened prior to that, really converged. And in 2020, we've seen the creation of the lakehouse concept, and really it merged the best of both worlds. It fused together analytics with machine learning, and one of the reasons that the flexibility of implementing a cloud data lakehouse, you can mitigate some of the known disadvantages of having a traditional diverged warehouse and data lake implementation. So warehouses are obviously less adaptive to any semi-structured data, hence the introduction of the data lake. They're not very cost effective to implement. You need to spend a lot of time understanding the specific needs of each of the consumers of your data and structuring it for that, and that can be quite cost consuming, and it can take a long time. And it's pretty rigid. It's hard to implement change in a structured data environment like a warehouse. It's not impossible, but it does take time, and it can slow down organizations' agility to change. And also, there's issues with the data lakes. There was a tendency for data lakes to turn into what was known as data swamps. Projects would use that as the place where all the data would go. People around the organization couldn't generally access it, so they couldn't really make best use out of the product. They couldn't access the information, and it became swamp-like. So it wasn't uniform in the lake, and it was new technology, and people tended to drift back to that structured warehouse. They wouldn't really make best use out of their unstructured data. I'll just click on. So some of the business benefits of a cloud data lakehouse. Firstly, cost savings. So you get your low total cost of ownership, and also the low cost to scale, and really importantly, it grows with the business. That's really important for smaller organizations who don't want to start off with high costs with your kind of traditional builds, pre-cloud, with infrastructure. So that's a really good business benefit, and we're seeing that with customers today. It allows you to do large scale compute workloads, so large data volumes, multiple different sources, structured, unstructured and semi-structured data. It's capable of ingesting all of that. And if you're thinking about some examples, you can think about Google Analytics, Adobe Analytics, any other platform that's monitoring your web events, capturing your mobile app interactions for those organizations that have apps out on devices, and also bank transactions, which can be millions, hundreds and hundreds of millions year to year. So it can be quite a lot. And I touched on earlier on as well, in the utility industry, you would have, when smart meters were introduced, there was billions and billions of those taken every half hour for all the 25 million meters installed across the UK. But also centralize your security and governance, accelerates your agility and agile and DevOps, and probably lastly, but most importantly, especially in today's environment, it allows you to innovate much faster. It allows you to consider different ways forward, A/B testing, and the capability, the acceleration of innovation from cloud data lakehouses has been phenomenal. And then I just want to take you now into the customer story. So this is something that we did very recently, where we looked at when we looked at a specific issue that the customer had engaged us with. So we engaged with our client, and we had to really understand what their biggest challenges were. We had to map out all their existing architecture. We needed them to call out their existing pain points. And some of the things that we discussed were their analytics team was focused predominantly on processing and prepping their data, and not really doing the value add analytics that they really wanted to do. We had to understand the limitations of the current setup. What is it that it couldn't do? And this particular client had a lot of SAP infrastructure, and they were really struggling to get the data out of those environments to maximize and build the models that they needed. We had to sit down and flesh out the use cases that they needed and any problem statements, and most importantly, if we resolved them, what did that actually mean in terms of tangible business benefits? You know, sometimes we might have problems in organizations that when we solve them, the business benefit isn't really worth the effort. So we really wanted to make them understand that they should be prioritizing the things that will benefit the business short, medium, and long term. And some of the things that we talked about in terms of tangible benefits was helping them increase sales by improving their current marketing campaigns to target very specific customers. And then we had to sit down and really understand at a high level the considerations when selecting the right vendor. So we had to, cost was important. It had to be low, not just in implementation, but also in consumption costs. Had to be agile. We had to do things quickly. We had to deliver an MVP rapidly so they could see it. We needed to be able to ingest large data sets quickly. And one of the things they struggled a bit with was prototyping of analytics. So that was something that they wanted to see and see demonstrated on the platform. Platform had to be flexible, had to be able to store structured and semi-structured and unstructured data, and they wanted to be able to easily share their data sets across the organization, something that they'd struggled with in the past. Had to be scalable, had to have the functionality that was important to them, and two of the things that we called out were it had to sit well within the SAP, their current SAP architecture, and it needed to help them with their data governance issues. And of course, future. We wanted to select a vendor who was best in class with their functionality for the most part, and really driving a really exciting roadmap for all the different technologies and services that they were doing. We wanted to pair them up with somebody who was really, moving into market leading spaces across the cloud space. And so at that point, became reasonably obvious to us that Azure was going to be the platform of choice. And we then produced a detailed implementation plan to set about accelerating their analytics and delivering key use cases. So quickly go over some of the architecture that we decided. So we had to consider their existing data sources, and also think about what they would look like going forward, additional data sources going down. We Synapse pipelines, which allows them to ingest and process the data from all these different sources, store them in a data lake, and your data warehouse component really down at the bottom is your Synapse SQL pools, where you can do additional refinement of your data from your data lake house. We also had to give them an ability to process their large scale data. And for this particular client, it was their web events, their Google Analytics platform. They'd struggled to get that in anywhere to make any real use out of it. And then this bit, which I really love, which is the Synapse Serverless SQL, which allows users to interrogate and investigate data from directly on their data lake from Synapse Studio. And all of these components are effectively part of your Synapse service, with the exception, of course, of your Azure Data Lake. So that was the main platform that we put in place. Those components make up your data lakehouse. And for some of the additional modeling use cases, we wanted to introduce Azure Machine Learning, which gives users a whole different approach to machine learning. And it was really quite, it gives you automatic machine learning, where you can publish data sets, and it will run a number of, a huge array of different pre-built-in models and feed you back the results. And then, of course, you can feed them back into your data lakehouse. So this was something that was really key for us to demonstrate to our client. And then for governance, as we touched on, we introduced Purview, currently in preview with Microsoft. So this is giving them a capability that they've never had before. And in terms of serving that information out, it makes absolute sense in this instance to include Power BI. Simply, it's been improving dramatically over the last few years. I've seen a huge improvement from Power BI from when they started looking at it a number of years ago, and it's the visualization integration with Synapse Studio is excellent. So you can develop and build all your reports in Synapse Studio, and you can use all the functionality and capabilities of Power BI in your studio, and use Power BI to publish and serve to your users across the organization. And then thinking longer term, this organization wanted to share the data, monetize it potentially in the future. And to do this, we were suggesting that they would use Azure Data Share. We also needed to consider NoSQL capabilities, which would be delivered by Cosmos. And then cognitive services to really take advantage of some of those data sets that Dan touched on that organizations weren't hitting on, with videos, pictures, and text. Cognitive services really helps with this. And we were using this to help them with their sentiment analysis of customers and their speech analytics. And of course, one thing that I'm really happy to talk about all day really is open data sets, which is like a pre-curated external data sets, demographics, weather, all things that in the past organizations would have struggled to get in in a structured or unstructured format regularly, this is something that you can introduce. So this was something to help with very specific weather forecasting that they wanted to include, which is really cool, and I really like that as well. And then moving on in the future, we also wanted to think about how they could, sorry, I'll skip the screen, but how they would improve with stream analytics, and really kind of, we wanted to provide their customers with a dynamic experience, and we've seen stream analytics as the absolute best choice to do that. And then here you can see, again, I'm not going to talk through this in too much detail, but this is the functional view of that architecture that we provided them, to give them an idea of the different kinds of sources, the different kinds of ingestion, what your data looks like, what happens in your modern data warehouse and your SQL pools, and this really helped our customers to understand exactly what each of the components were going to deliver. And so on to the Azure services. So we've really, we've seen quite a lot about how Azure can help with accelerating analytics. But it also offers an absolute plethora of different services to meet all kinds of different demands across your organization. It's absolutely one of the most comprehensive and broadly adopted cloud platforms, provides services from around 60 regions. It's quadrant leading, which is an important consideration point for all sorts of organizations. It does end-to-end solutions. It's global infrastructure, as we mentioned. It has unmatched hybrid capability, best-in-class cloud networking and security, application development as well, which is something that our clients consider on a regular basis. And generally, it's very competitive on cost, has a lot of established partnerships with class-leading vendors like Informatica and SAP. And really important for a lot of the analytics teams that we engage with, it has a really easy learning curve. Synapse Analytics Studio is a one-stop shop for all your analytics, where you can do pipeline data ingestion, visualization, accessing of your and reviewing of your data lake, and publishing your reports out through BI. So it really is a great collaboration area. So that's something that I really consider to be really important and a really good selling point. But with all that said, it's a lot to consider when choosing what's the best fit for your organization. It can be hard to know where to start, what tools and services you need to use, and really you need to think about how you're going to approach your migration to the cloud. But here to help with some of that is Tom, who's going to walk you through Agile's migration approach.
Thank you very much, Richard. Mind control. Okay, cool. So my name is Tom Richards, Principal Consultant and Cloud Solution Architect for Agile. So in this section, I'll be showcasing our phased approach to cloud migration, how we help our customers successfully make the journey onto Azure from start to finish and beyond, enabling them to fully exploit the value of their data and other IT assets, much in line with a lot of the cloud migration drivers that Richard mentioned earlier. So our phased approach to cloud migration is based on our expertise in applying tried and tested processes and frameworks, such as the Microsoft Cloud Adoption Framework and the Azure Migration Program. I'll be looking at the end-to-end process in a minute, but on this slide, I'm going to show some of the key building blocks that underpin the overall success. As has been mentioned before, we are a Microsoft Gold partner and able to work closely with our customers throughout their cloud migration journey itself, and more importantly, to help them beyond the end of the migration to continue unlocking the value of their data and assets. As Gold partners, we are well practiced in working together with Microsoft Professional Services to give you the best level of support possible. We're able to bring a high level of expertise over a range of tooling, not only from Microsoft, but also from other partners, to give you a best of breed acceleration tailored to your target workloads. And we'll be looking at some examples of this later on, and with a demo from my colleague, Dan McCain. Skilling your workforce for cloud adoption is obviously critical to ensuring success, and we are very experienced in delivering tailored training to our customers over a range of technical subjects. Finally, as I said earlier, we've developed our own migration methodology, which has enabled our customers to break free from the inertia of complexity and quickly help them to get to speed with their migrations. We're also able to tailor that methodology to your own particular goals, your scopes and complexity. And we're able to take on the real world migration challenges and see you through to completion and beyond. So our end-to-end methodology comprises 4 key stages that provide a systematic approach to breaking down complexity and accelerate you through to completion. As I think I said before, this has evolved out of our experience with customers and taking on board best practice from the various cloud providers such as Microsoft, but also Amazon Web Services, Google, and so on. And this approach has proven effective whether you're looking to migrate a single workload or hundreds of thousands. All migrations, however large or small, require coordination and implementation across multiple disciplines and teams. So we approach all stages of the migration, all iterations of migration in 4 stages: assess, mobilize, migration and modernize, and manage and monetize. Each phase builds on the outputs of the previous one, and each contributes to overall accelerated migration at scale. By walking through these stages, we're able to consider the challenges such as the ones that Richard was talking about earlier and beyond to open the door for ongoing management and monetization of your resources. And although this is shown in a straight line, we have found that the approach works most effectively when applied iteratively and becomes the core of a new culture of migration within your business. And throughout the process, we look to work alongside your team to equip and empower them to help develop your own in-house capabilities. So because of this, it makes no difference whether you're only just starting out on your cloud journey or whether you're already a significant way through. We find that our customers get their best results, as I say, when this becomes part of their culture. So working through each of the stages in turn, drilling down into the assess stage, first of all, this stage forms the foundation of our approach to migration, whether our customers are just starting out or going through the latest iteration. The first aspect is the selection of partner, ideally somebody with the right expertise and experience who's committed to working closely with you throughout the process and is able and prepared to take on the difficult real-life challenges. Also, an ideal partner is one who's able to continuously help you to manage and monetize your data and assets after migration is complete and adding value to it. Obviously, we would recommend ourselves as meeting all of these criteria. And I think we saw from the case study that Richard described earlier, that's a good illustration of how we can help our customers. So we help you to assess your organization's current readiness for operating the cloud by giving structured guidance through answering key questions such as these ones here, about where am I now, where do I want to get to, and all of the aspects that go into formulating those 2 pictures. So we help you to close the gap between not ready and ready. And most importantly, we help you to identify the desired business outcomes and develop the business case for your integration and help get buy-in from internal and external stakeholders and managing the changes that are going to be needed within your organization, such as governance, operational support, and training. So this is a slide I'm going to be returning to regularly throughout this section, which is it's all about choosing the right tool for the right job and also being able to apply that tool in the right way. So a lot of the tools we're talking about and processes and techniques are known, but it's how you actually manage to apply those techniques and tools that's all important. So in terms of tooling for the assess stage, Your initial evaluation should include a structured cross-team review of your company readiness by completing the Strategic Migration Assessment and Readiness tool, SMART, and also the Cloud Journey Tracker. These give structured assessments and outputs, which we'll see examples of in a minute. Additional tools include the Governance Benchmark tool, the Strategy and Plan template, and the Cloud Adoption Plan Generator, which enables you to fill an Azure DevOps Cloud Adoption project with a systematic backlog of tasks. So here are some of the outputs of those structured questionnaires and assessments, where you can see at a glance what your readiness is and what your health is at that particular moment. In addition, one of the key tools available is the Azure Migrate Hub. This has a number of tools, not only to assess, but also to help with all of the stages of the migration. And here's some of the outputs that come from that tool, which is an assessment of current condition of on-premises assets. The outcome of this stage is that we're ready to proceed with a clear basis for action. Next stage is the Mobilized stage. So the first assessment stage has answered where I am and where I want to get to. The goal of the Mobilized stage is to put flesh on the bones of the migration so that we know how we're going to achieve our goals. This phase provides us with an opportunity to lay the foundation for tooling, process, and culture that will accelerate the migration at scale. So key questions are: what preliminary steps do I need to get put in place? What the migration patterns are applicable? What optimizations can I make? What tooling is best? What are the license implications and options for moving into the cloud? And very importantly, what automation can I put in place at this stage? Can I also migrate iteratively and incrementally so that we get early visibility of the success of our migration and take corrective action where needed and de-risk? So we help you to create a migration plan and refine your business case. We also help you to address gaps in your organization's readiness that were uncovered in the assess phase, with a focus on building your baseline environment, the so-called landing zone, driving operational readiness, and developing cloud skills. A strong migration plan starts with a deeper understanding of the interdependencies between applications and evaluates migration strategies to meet your business case objectives. So migration patterns, may be familiar with, but they commonly go by the name of the 6 R's. So these are patterns that we help you to look through for each of the workloads that you're looking to migrate, which we start out with potentially for a given workload, we simply retire it. And over on the right-hand side, you'll see for each of the patterns, the corresponding time to migrate and one-off cost in terms of effort and skills. So retain is where we want to keep it going on-prem for whatever reason, but this will potentially also incur a certain amount of cost in keeping the lights on. Repurchase is another way of saying, well, we replace it via a purchased option. So that could be software as a service, or it could be a COTS product that we deploy to the cloud. That has its own time and cost associated with it. Rehost is commonly called lift and shift, where we look to do a minimal amount of change to the existing application, simply move it from where it is now into the cloud. Replatform is where we take the opportunity while we're moving to take immediate advantage of some of the services that are available in the cloud, but it's not a wholesale restructuring of the entire workload. But that's what refactoring is, effectively, where we do a thorough fundamental restructuring of our workload to make the best possible use of the available cloud options. And this may also, as part of the refactoring, end up with a hybrid solution where some of it is still running on-prem. But based on our experience with each of these patterns, we help you to identify the most appropriate options for each workload in line with target business's technical and operational goals. So what tooling do we have for Mobilize? Well, this is just scratching the surface, but you can see there's numerous tools available for data preparation and migration, and we'll be looking at one of the third-party tools available in the demo later on, where we look at how we can improve the quality of the tooling, tools for application and infrastructure, and we also there's also tooling for automation in primarily the Azure DevOps and ARM templates that we can use. So the outcomes of the Mobilized stage are: I know how to get to where I want to go, and I'm ready to migrate. So now we move on to Migrate and Modernize, where we put everything that we've done up to now into operation. So firstly, migration. Migrate at scale consists of building blocks, practices, tools, resources, and methodologies defined and tested during the assess and mobilize phase. In the migration phase, we work with our customers to execute the migration plan and implementation developed during the earlier phases, covering all aspects such as data, infrastructure, and so on. But each migration is different in the detail, but leverages the same common well-known patterns and best practices. A key component is establishing a migration factory composed of teams, tools, and processes to streamline the movement of workloads from on-premises to Azure. The migration factory teams work through a prioritized backlog of workloads based on migration patterns identified earlier. So we want to be able to do this incrementally as well and adopt an automated approach. And each time we go around the loop, we make sure that we systematically validate the migration outcomes against the target metrics and the business case. So the outcome of the migrate is the migration is complete. Excuse me. So we move towards modernization. So we've got the tick in the box, as it were, in terms of the migration itself. But modernization is all about not standing still, because our competitors won't be standing still. So we need to continually monitor operational performance, revisit our business case as it may change over time, and evaluate, optimize, and prioritize what we want to do next. And again, automation is not only gives us benefits for the workload as it stands at the moment, but also gives us the ability to move that workload forward in modernization through a repeatable set of deployment and automated test tasks. And we can, if we've done a lift and shift to start with, then we can start moving that forward into a more modern cloud-enabled solution. So the outcome of this is continuous improvement. And then we start getting into the manage and monetize cycle that we've talked about already. And talking about manage and monetize, well, effectively it's a simple kind of equation between your cloud assets plus the cloud platform services, and the help of a good partner leads you to opportunity on a continual basis. So again, we looked at a lot of the tools that are available. I'm now going to hand over to my colleague Dan McCain, who will present our expertise in how we select and apply tooling from one of our partners, Informatica, and how this fits into an overall Azure plus Synapse solution. Over to you, Dan.
Thanks, Tom. So while I take control, let me introduce myself. My name is Daniel McCain. I'm a consultant at Agile Solutions, and I'm a member of our Informatica Cloud Core Tech team. And today, like Tom said, I'm just going to give you a short overview and demo of Informatica Cloud. So as we've seen, some organizations adopt a wall-to-wall Azure infrastructure. However, 93% of enterprise customers use a multi-cloud platform. As Informatica is cloud agnostic, it works as a great pairing with this infrastructure approach, and is commonly requested by our clients in demos or proof of concept work. So Next, we might ask, what is Informatica? So Informatica is the cloud. Informatica Cloud, is the industry's leading iPaaS solution, so integration platform as a service, and has been rated #1 by Gartner for 7 years running. Informatica Cloud offers the industry's most modern, comprehensive, cloud-native, microservices-based, API-driven and AI-powered enterprise iPaaS solution. Informatica also offers Clear AI, which helps you accelerate time to value and return on investment with meta-driven AI and machine learning. And currently, Informatica Cloud supports 15 trillion transactions a month from all of its customers and holds the industry's highest number of security certifications. Now, an integration service is nothing without connectors. So we have here over 100 out of the box connectors that Informatica supplies. You might know, identify with a few of them that your organization uses. However, there is a marketplace with many more if you don't see something on the screen here that you use. And if you use more of a niche technology, Informatica does supply a toolkit that allows you to create your own connectors. So whatever your system is, Informatica has you covered. Now, what does Informatica look like? So the Informatica Designer looks similar to something like Synapse Data Pipeline in that it's simple to use, and it adopts a drag and drop style approach that requires no coding knowledge. Informatica Cloud also provides class-leading data quality that allows you to profile and cleanse your data, and Informatica keeps a history of your data profiles so you can see how your data quality is improved over time. Now, Informatica supports batch and real-time integrations, change data capture for databases, streaming data ingestion via something like Azure Stream. And Informatica has also provided integration templates for common use cases that use a 7-step wizard to allow you to quickly integrate your systems. Reusability is achieved via parameterized mappings that ensure data from other sources is handled or cleansed in the same way. So we're going to jump into a short demo. So I'll take you through that just now. And first we'll have a look at a few of the sources that we're going to work with today. So Informatica can handle structured, semi-structured and unstructured data. So the two that we're going to have a look at today is a semi-structured JSON file and a structured CSV file. And if you have a look at the CSV file, we can see here the kind of first names and last names might be in different cases. We've got email addresses that could potentially have incorrect formats or special characters that are not valid in an email address, and then something similar for the telephone numbers. So telephone numbers can be input into a system in a number of ways. So we would want to see a kind of common format across those. So within Informatica, we can handle these in a few ways. So if we start with the semi-structured JSON file, what we've got here is a simple mapping to push the JSON file to a Synapse target. So we have a source step here, and like I said, it's drag and drop, so you have these steps along the side that allow you to build out your mapping. So here we have a source step, which allows us to connect to that JSON file. We can pull that through, and by providing Informatica with a sample file or a schema, we can use this parser step, which will take our JSON file and parse it to a structured format that we can pass through to our target. We also have the other file, the CSV file. So within the CSV file, like I said, we've got a few kind of data quality issues. So again, we've got our source step, which is going to pick up that file. We also have these data quality cleanse steps, and each of these is running a different data quality cleanse rule, which you can create, and we'll have a look at one of those in a minute. So here we are cleansing the phone numbers, emails, names, and then the library card IDs from this file, and then we're pushing to a Synapse target once we've cleaned the data up. So to have a quick look at one of these rules in a bit more detail, so we'll look at the cleanse email one. So there's 4 steps in this rule. First one is to convert the case to lowercase. Second one would be to remove leading and trailing spaces, as well as kind of multiple spaces in the middle of the string. We have a third step which removes custom strings. So if there's any specific things we want to remove, or maybe just single spaces, things like that, we can specify what we want to remove. And the fourth one uses a data dictionary. This data dictionary can be reused in kind of other rules if we want to as well. But this one holds a list of special characters that are not valid for email addresses, and we can use that data dictionary to remove that from the email addresses. Now, I'll just point out, we've run this this morning, just so we didn't have any kind of technical hiccups or anything like that. So we've run this morning. We should see that this is 50 rows that we've got here. However, Informatica can scale to billions of records without a problem. So just thought we'd point that one out. And then what we can do is we can actually have a look at the data in Synapse. So for example, we spoke about our first name and last names, so these are all now in uppercase, common across both of the fields. We've got email addresses where we have kind of spaces in the middle removed, any invalid characters have been removed, and again from mobile phone, like we've seen there was so many different formats that mobile phone numbers can be input in. This has now went through those and put it into a common format across the board, and removed again any kind of characters that we might not want, or if there's just a completely invalid phone number. So for example, if someone's managed to put text or things like that in the phone field, then those can be nulled as well. So that's a quick look at Informatica Cloud and Informatica Cloud data quality. What I'm going to do is hand back to Dan Minnick to summarise. So Dan, it's back over to you.
Thanks, Dan. Right, I think I've got control there. So we've looked at the data lakehouse as a concept, how Azure and Synapse capability enable lakehouse solutions. We've looked at our migration methodology and that we use with our customers and how that's evolved through the breadth of our experience in helping clients move into the cloud, and finally looked at how you can leverage Informatica products to round out your architecture, take advantage of the capability and value their product set can bring to your wider technological estate. So to close out, I thought it would be useful to highlight some of the key points that we've identified that have been critical to successful lakehouse and migration projects. First of all, with respect to Synapse, I mean, obviously you've seen that it can cater for a huge number of capabilities and range. It's got a huge range of capabilities that it can cater for, and it'd be easy to get drawn into a widening scope of projects to cover more and more business requirements. It's critical to focus on the scope of the high value use cases and to maintain that focus through to production. And then once that's done, you can look at adding extra use cases and look at downstream phases or downstream projects. Now, the collaboration capability within Synapse is fantastic, and taking advantage of this means it can make your delivery more efficient, and it can manage risk by helping you to upskill your team and to share knowledge. Now, in terms of your migration approach, making use of tried and tested methodology, it's flexible enough to cater for unique requirements specific to your organization, is going to add structure to your migration programs. Leveraging the appropriate technology to facilitate migration processes at the right time is critical. The old use the right tool for the right job, which slide we saw a few times. And finally, automation, right? Automation can help you maintain the momentum to get through your migration projects, and it'll also help you to manage costs and make your projects more likely to succeed. Now, it comes to the end of our presentation part of the session. If there's any questions or support that anyone on the call feels like they would need with any of the technologies or concepts that we've covered as part of this session, please feel free to reach out to any of them. Myself and Richard and Tom are on there, as well as Steve Wedding, who's the COO of Agile Solutions. And please go and check out our LinkedIn profile, and if you want to see this session or any of the other sessions we have in this series, they'll be available on our YouTube channel. Right, I think we'll hand it over to Gemma, and she's got some questions that have been raised as part of the session. I don't know, Gemma, if you want to just jump in and start firing some of those questions off. We'll go through a few of those, to take us through to the close of the session?
Sure. So the first is, you talked about data and analytics worlds colliding. How are you seeing that trend play out with cloud service providers?
I can take this one. This is something that not only that we see as part of our engagements, but Gartner obviously recognized this as well. But there's lots of examples where we start to see analytics techniques and specifically around machine learning and AI applications and how they're being used further upstream in the lifecycle. So you think of Informatica, who have added Claire AI to a lot of their integration products in order to kind of facilitate that process and enable pipelines. And we've seen it in other areas with the augmentation principles, using sentiment analysis from cognitive services, for example, and speech to text natural language processing applications to draw data out of audio and video components. So there's lots of areas similar in there where we start to see the lines blurring between analytics and engineering, for example.
The next one is, typically how long would it take to work through the assess and mobilize stages of your approach?
This one for Tom, I think.
Okay, yeah, so obviously that's going to be a function of the, where a given customer is in their journey and the number of workloads that are identified. But I would say at a minimum, we would probably be able to do an assessment phase in under a month, and the Mobilize would probably take another month as a minimum as well. Though there may be simple circumstances where we could reduce the time. I hope that answers the question.
Thanks. Next one is, would you consider taking on board the running of a migrated workload as a managed service?
Yes, I think we would. I think that there's enough tool sets and that we've got expertise in that we could leverage to kind of run a migration for a client. I think we've got some experience in that area with some of the customers that we work with. So yeah, absolutely. We have the capability in-house to deliver migration projects as a managed service. Certainly, I would suggest.
Okay. Final question is, you talked about the 6 R's of migration patterns. These are recognised industry standard patterns. How is your approach any different?
Okay, so I'll take that again. So I think, as I mentioned when I was going through the 6 R's are a well-known best practice, but it's obviously how we actually apply the best practice in a given situation, our expertise in being able to differentiate which approach is best for a given workload and the detail that goes into it. So I think, yes, it's how we apply the 6 R's that's a key differentiator there.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we've got. So we'll look to close the session. So again, thanks to everyone who joined. We hope that again you found this interesting and informative. I'd like to remind everyone that there's a survey that's going to be sent out to everybody that was on the session. If you would, it's relatively short, shouldn't take you very long to get through. But any feedback that you can give us helps us again to examine other areas that we might want to focus on as part of the series, and that just helps us to make sure that we improve the quality and the content of our sessions. So again, thank you very much, and we hope to see you again in one of the next webinars that we produce in the coming weeks. So thanks everyone for joining, and goodbye.